Everyone and welcome back to Football Forecast, and in today's video I'll be going through my Liverpool Spurs combined 11 based off players that are match fit and available for this game. If you enjoy this, it would be great to subscribe to this channel as well as liking the video. Let's start off with the keeper. And for Liverpool, we have got Alisson Becker. Alisson has been injured at points so far this season, but he's still been very solid, decent performances across the board from Alisson. A couple of standout performances, for example, Crystal Palace, and I thought he was very good last week against Brighton. Vicario, I thought started all right, but recently he's been on a complete downfall, continuing to make mistakes and costing Spurs. And overall, Alisson is just a way better keeper. Alisson's up there with some of the best in the world. Vicario is nowhere near this, and I think if Spurs had a better alternative, they would actually consider dropping Vicario. So for this reason, I'll obviously be selecting Alisson in goal. Then we are on to the right back, and Liverpool have no right backs fit apart from potentially Connor Bradley. It looks like Bradley should be fit for this game. It's so hard to right now because Liverpool just have such an injury problem there. Frimpong's injured. Joe Gomez is out for this game as well, and Dominic Szoboszlai potentially is, but either way, I'm actually going to play him in the midfield in this combined 11. So then for Spurs, the alternative is Pedro Porro, and I'm going to be selecting Porro. This is pretty simple. I think Bradley's been good this season, but he's just been inconsistent. Liverpool as a side have been inconsistent. And look, for this combined 11, there'll be some waiting definitely on this season and some waiting on previous seasons. So I will be selecting Porro for this combined 11. His delivery is absolutely brilliant. He can be caught out defensively at points, but I still think he's a very solid fullback. Then into the two centre halves, and we've got Virgil van Dijk and Konate for Liverpool. Konate has been really out of sorts so far this season. Had probably one of the biggest drop-offs in the Premier League, and I think that was partly because of the Real Madrid contract. That obviously looks like it's disappeared now. Maybe Konate will start to pick it up, but I just think he's very low on confidence right now. For Liverpool, Virgil van Dijk has not been quite at his best so far this season, and continues to make some strange mistakes that are very unlike Van Dijk, but we just know the class of him. He's a world-class centre-half, and I'm going to be selecting Virgil van Dijk. For the Spurs centre-half, we've got Romero and we've got Mickey van de Ven. Romero has been good for Spurs, and so have Mickey van de Ven. I think this one's a bit about personal preference, but I'm going to go with Mickey van de Ven. I just think his extra recovery pace is so important for that Spurs side. He saves them so often. He can get caught out a bit, but I often think he also bails Spurs out of trouble. And for that reason, I'll be selecting him. I also think next to Van Dijk, they would do so well together. So then on to left back. And for Liverpool, I've got Milos Kerkez. He's starting to play well, I think, Kerkez. And for that reason, I've selected him over Andy Robertson. And for Spurs left back, I've got is Jed Spence. Spence has had a bit of a revelation since last season. He looked like a completely different player. There is a bit of an attitude problem with Spence. Disagreements with Thomas Frank, who's under a lot of pressure. But for that reason, I will be selecting Jed Spence at left back in this combined 11. So then we're on to the midfield three. And for Spurs, you've got the likes of João Palhinha, and you've got the likes of Rodrigo Bentancur. I think for this combined 11, I'm going to be more focusing on the potential of Palhinha getting in this side. I think Palhinha is actually a very underrated midfielder. Look, he's never going to progress the ball. This has been highlighted all season, so this is a problem for Spurs. But I think if you have midfielders next to him that can ball carriers, midfielders that can pass the ball well up the pitch, then I actually think Palhinha is a very good player. His defensive numbers are absolutely outstanding. So I actually am going to be selecting João Palhinha in this combined 11. I always think for both sides, having that sort of solid holding midfielder is really necessary. Next to him, I am going to be selecting Ryan Gravenberch. I think those two as a pairing would be absolutely outstanding. So for that reason, I'm going to be selecting Ryan Gravenberch. Then we look into the 10, and it's got to be Dominic Szoboszlai. Probably the best player on both sides of this season, definitely on Liverpool. Szoboszlai has been incredible all season for Liverpool, and you could select him basically anywhere. For this combined 11, I've selected him slightly more further forward into a 10 position. Spurs' alternative player for this is probably your Xavi Simons, but I've decided to move Xavi Simons out onto left because now I'm going to be discussing Xavi Simons or Florian Wirtz. And I think this is a really interesting comparison between Florian Wirtz and Xavi Simons, because you've got two players that came from the Bundesliga, absolute talents, but they struggled so far with the physicality of the Premier League, settling in sides that are struggling. And I think that's been reflected, but I think both players are starting to show their quality. Xavi Simons more so, you could argue, in the last week, but I think Wirtz is actually probably the better player from what we saw in the Bundesliga. So what am I going to prioritise for the selection? I'm going to select Florian Wirtz in this combined 11. I think he's probably been slightly worse than Xavi Simons so far this season, but I actually think if you look at the players sort of overall, there's a bigger gap in that, and for that reason, that's why I've selected Wirtz. I know he hasn't had any goals and assists in the Premier League. That's been really highlighted. But if you just watch him, he's actually playing really well recently, Wirtz. I really do think, though, this is a pick of what are you waiting more? Are you waiting sort of current form more? In that case, I think you would go with Xavi Simons, or are you just waiting the quality of the player, which I have decided to do. And for that case, I think you have to go with Florian Wirtz. So then we are on to the striker position. And for Liverpool, you've either got Isak or Ekitike. For me, it's more of a conversation of which Liverpool player do you want to select. For Spurs, you've got Richarlison. I think I'm going to select Hugo Ekitike. I can't really justify Isak. He just hasn't played quite enough minutes so far this season compared to a player like Ekitike, who's been starting in the striker position over him, and he's won back his place there. And for that reason, I think you have to go between Ekitike and Richarlison, and I will be selecting Hugo Ekitike. One of Liverpool's best players with the minutes he has been handed, and recently he's got back to sort of his form at the start of the season. We're finishing off with the right winger, and I don't think there's actually a Liverpool nomination here. I think the Liverpool nomination, you could argue, was Dominic Szoboszlai. You can maybe look at sort of Curtis Jones on the right, but I've actually gone between Spurs players of Kudus and Xavi Simons. I think Xavi Simons could play on the right as well. And I'm going to be selecting Kudus. I think he's been the Spurs' standout attacker so far this season. Whenever Spurs are looking for some sort of threat, it usually does come through Kudus. Look at points, it has been limited. He is an inconsistent player, but when he's on it, he's a very dangerous attacker. And finally, then we have got the manager after a 6-5 split to Liverpool. Very close, and it definitely could have gone either way. And for the manager, I'm going to be selecting Arne Slot over Thomas Frank. Two managers that are currently struggling, but we're still seeing that Slot has won a Premier League. He has got the quality as a Premier League manager. So far this season, it hasn't worked out for him, but neither it has for Thomas Frank, which means it is quite a simple selection. If you enjoyed it, it'd be great if you subscribe to your channel as well as liking the video. Let me know your combined 11 in the comments.